today. We're going to go through a couple of slides and then walk through the new product. So we'll go ahead and get started. Really exciting day for us here. I hope it's exciting for you. We've got customers on this call. We've got prospective customers on this call. We have family on this call. We've got friends, and we have investors on this call. So just such a community that's rallied around us. And before we get into it, just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your business. Thank you for treating employees the way they deserve to be treated. Thank you for being part of this change in the mission of Bereave. Do want to give a little bit of a preemptive heads up. This is the first time that we have shown Bereave in its current state. Changes were being made up until 9 o'clock this morning, so very recently, and we'll continue iterating. But this is the first time anybody has seen it outside of internal Paragraph Ventures, Paragraph Studio, our studio partner and investor, and a few of our customers. So there are going to be bugs, probably some hangups. I'll probably trip over my words many times. I'm very much still learning here as well. So in its launch state, which you will see today, launch state will probably be, I think we're onboarding our first customer on Friday. After that, we've got a quick hit feature roadmap for February and March that we're going to be having some pretty rapid releases as we're bringing on new customers. So with that, I'd like to introduce Chris Pfeiffer. Chris is our VP of Product and Engineering. I'm pointing this way because he is actually just to my right here, who's going to give me a little bit of air cover today. Chris, anything you'd like to add about today's demo?
No, we're excited to show you what we've got so far. I think the big thing to keep in mind as we move away from a content platform and more towards a custom application is that what you're going to see today is it's really the start line, not the finish line. Moving to a custom application allows us to solve problems in very creative ways and work in a really unconstrained fashion. So we're excited to partner with all you and figure out what solutions we can come up with to make grief in the workplace better. This is just the beginning. We're excited to keep going.
Awesome. Thanks a ton, Chris. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Like I said, we've got just a couple of quick slides just to kind of set the tone, and then we'll get into the product demo. So a lot of you know these things. Some of these things might be on repeat. Maybe there's some new information here that might be helpful to you in whatever world that you're in. Bereavement leave and bereavement support are two massively different things. Leave typically looks like a policy, eligibility for time off, maybe given an 800 number to call. Some companies have lumped things like sending a care package or flowers into like kind of that bereavement leave process. Bereavement support, however, is prepared and educated managers, prepared and educated people team, HR team. They've got a plan, they've got a playbook, they've got some roadmap to follow. And there really becomes alignment between the company, usually represented by HR, the people team, the manager, and the bereaved employee. That alignment is really critical to that employee experience. And what we've learned through really thousands of interviews and surveys to this point is that bereavement isn't just about policy, time off, and an EAP. It's about mental health support. It promotes equity and inclusion. It furthers retention and productivity, and it really can help define a culture. And it really says a ton about who a company really is when they're showing up in some of the darkest, hardest moments of their employees' lives. So it really is the difference to make it simple. It's really the difference between pushing someone away and pulling them close. Bereavement support is the new standard, and it's what we're helping build for the world with the help of a lot of you. Just kind of set the tone because there's a lot of impact facing businesses on this topic. And I think these data points are really important to cover. We get asked a lot about like the prevalence of death, which is interesting. You can probably just Google it and do a quick math equation, but we like to share this, that 1 in 18 American employees are going to suffer the loss of a child, spouse, parent, or sibling each year. 1 in 18. If you add aunt and uncle, close friend, or grandparent, that turns into 1 in 9. We haven't even mentioned some others like cousin. We haven't mentioned pets. We haven't mentioned other relationships that might occur. So loss is probably much more prevalent than most business leaders anticipate if they haven't faced it themselves. A poll that we ran, nearly 500 people responded to, show that 51% of people that suffered the loss of a loved one left their jobs within 12 months. So there's a pretty leaky talent bucket that exit interviews probably aren't catching. And it's super important to understand that if you are the executor of a will, estate, you have to work through the trust. It can take, on average, 15 months, 1 hour a day for 15 months for people to close up those associated tasks. And when you think about when banks and credit card companies and insurance companies and the courts are open, it's typically during work hours. Okay, so there's a big productivity hit that occurs here as well. Responding to hardship for managers in HR is a really big knot for most companies. HR has enough knots to be untangling these days, and this doesn't have to be a knot that needs to be untangled. Bereave helps untangle these knots, and despite every situation being unique, we've created a common language, common processes and procedures, and a common navigation experience that really helps bring some peace to employees that are facing some of the darkest, toughest moments of their life. And when those knots are untangled, there are real outcomes that impact the P&L, outcomes that our customers are seeking, and we're helping them define. So these are the 4 themes, and this is the last slide before we get into this. These are the 4 themes that we've created around feedback from those thousands of points of experience that have been shared with us. This is what we've built around. We've built around this feedback. We've built around the stories, and we're excited to share how we've done that today. So we will demonstrate today how HR teams and managers can prepare for these moments. We'll demonstrate a workflow for HR when informed of a loss. We'll show resources for employees to work through their own loss and grief, and touch on some overviews of data and analytics that we are going to make available. Also, if there are any questions, go ahead and lob them into the chat as you will. We'll either grab those as we go or we'll hold them to the end, depending on the question and the timing. But go ahead and do that. Of course, I didn't go back to the post from. There we go. All right. So welcome to Bereave. Let's think of this in those four themes. Let's start with preparation. We'll talk a little bit about onboarding new customers and manager rollout. So think about when a new customer comes on. This is essentially where the HR leader will land. Okay, so you can see already they've got some content here that will help them navigate situations in their specific role. When managers log in, that'll be manager content. When employees log in, it will reflect some of the situations that they might be going through. So that's specific to them right there. They also have a significant amount of information that is somewhat hard to find out there today. But when we roll out a new customer, we ask managers to basically spend 15 minutes and go through these first 3 sections just to get kind of a 101 on empathy, a 101 on grief and compassion, and why these things are important in the workplace. And when you think through, just kind of philosophically about empathy and compassion and understanding how grief shows up and impacts work, we also get really tactical on what to say and what not to say. These are some critical moments that can really impact the employee's experience with their manager, depending on how they show up, especially in those early moments. Thinking about an employee who shows up and says, Mr. and Mrs. Manager, I have to go because X just happened and so-and-so has passed away. What that manager does in those moments can make or break the rest of that experience and the experience at work. And it can also impact their grief journey significantly. So that's how we start with bringing managers on. One thing that I also want to note is that from a manager perspective, We started these this year. Bereave is actually hiring subject matter experts to do 1 hour workshops. We did 3 of these this year, had really great reaction from our customer base. So we are doing 7 this year as a part of the subscription in Bereave. So these are subject matter experts that do workshops specifically for managers on topics like having difficult conversations, self-care when you're caring for others, things like that that are applicable not just to death and grief, but also applicable to the manager skill set and understanding as well. So as managers are working through the one-on-one, we encourage our HR partners to push managers to those specific sections just to get those basic skills and that basic knowledge down. I'm going to come back to the homepage here. And we're going to think of a situation where an HR manager has been informed of a loss. One of the first things that they can do is obviously come here and read through some of the content, see some of the videos, but also they can actually create a case. And the case is what we are calling right now just that when an employee suffers the loss of a loved one, or if a company loses an employee. There are 2 separate tracks for that. Today, we're going to focus on the loss of a loved one of an employee. Okay. So they'll click new case, and then they have this path where they're going to enter a little bit of information, loss of a loved one. I'm going to select a user. Today, we're going to select Marco Polo. I'm going to use Art Sayers. Here in the date of loss, I'll call 122, and I'll say that this is a parent. This is Marco's parent, Art. I'll click next. So here we're kind of capturing some leave information when that leave is occurring. I'll say it's starting today, and I'll say that Marco works at a pretty progressive company, so we'll put this out 15, 16 days. Marco's manager is actually Elijah Linder, and I'm going to make some notes here that there we go. Marco is the executor and has some responsibilities for the funeral arrangements. And that just helps us understand, if we have that information, that helps us understand what Marco has going on in his life, at least for the next couple of weeks from a tactical perspective. So the details emerge here. I'm going to keep this internal for now, and I'm going to click submit. Now, what will happen is that I will be taken to a page that where a couple things exist. First of all, here are all the loss details from Marco's loss. You will see that Elijah Linder has tagged here as a collaborator. If I want to invite somebody else, maybe I want to invite our CEO as an example. I might invite that next person. And now I've got some collaborators on this case. What HR can then do is start to work through a checklist of considerations. We are not saying that every company should do all of these things every time somebody suffers a loss, but we are saying is that these are things that need to be considered in every situation, so that not only is there equity, but also that we're making sure that steps don't get missed along the way. A lot of times what happens, and we hear this all the time, HR teams think about like, oh shoot, what did we do last time? And let's just do that. That's helpful to some degree, but now you have to think back and figure out exactly what you did, make sure that you're not showing favoritism, make sure that you're not skipping steps. So there's a lot of risk that's associated with that. So in this, this becomes the checklist. And if I want to ask Elijah to do a few things, here's what I do. I assign him a task, and you'll see that Elijah Linder owns this. Now he can log in and he can select that this is in progress. And as we check it off, these colors will change as well. So you'll see that the initial communication expectations are complete. One of the things that we are working on building out that has been super helpful for a lot of folks already, and just reviewing this, is that understanding like what exactly some of these things mean. If you haven't handled services before, or you haven't been the executor of a will or an estate, you might not really understand what that means. So we want to make sure that we're giving some context here, and we're also building in extra information that could help with that situation. This allows our HR teammates and our managers to make more informed decisions as they work through each of these scenarios. Sorry, I came over here to read some comments. I'm going to stay off the comments for a second. That was a bad idea. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. That checklist goes all the way down to building out resource packages. And there's a lot in here, including return to work discussions. You will also see a re-entry checklist start to emerge here on how to bring people back into work in a humane way, rather than just hopping right back in and acting like nothing happened. We talk about training their immediate team. We talk about making sure that we're thinking about adjusted schedules or adjusted workload or adjusted role, maybe adjusted evaluation period, depending on the situation. All things that should be considered when you're bringing somebody back into work. Should the HR team decide that they want to do things, one of the things that we heard is from one of our customers was that managers always come to HR and say, "Hey, can you send so-and-so flowers?" Right? And then somebody has to go do that. Managers will have the opportunity to do that if they have the budget for it. There are other things that other services or products that companies like to sponsor or gift to these families that they're working with. There's an opportunity to do that, and this is just kind of a random selection right now. This will continue to emerge with more opportunities for companies to support outside of just having Bereave. So I'm going to return to cases. You'll see a couple here. These are two instances I've done very similar for Marco, but all of these employee losses will start to be built here with status and date of loss along with the type of loss. So this will kind of be the running list of cases that are or have occurred in the workplace. So while Marco's team, manager, HR team, are working through supporting him in these ways, Marco also has access to his own side of Bereave, which it looks like I need to represent because I screwed that up. Hang tight. I'm going to stop screen. I'm going to present again. Make sure I'm doing this the right way this time. Okay. There we go. That's why Chris is here. Got to have a wingman. So Marco on this side will be directed to Bereave. He either understood, and when it was rolled out to the company, he knew where to go, or maybe HR kicked him an email or a reminder, so he's landed here. And this will start to guide Marco through his specific experience, and all employees will have access just like Marco does. So Marco lost a parent. He is the executor or helping with the estate. So we will check that. I'm going to go ahead and add details here. And again, I'm going to do Arthur Sayers, date of birth. Oops. I don't really need to do this. You all understand how this works. Well, we're going to make that a little bit better. Date of loss. And I'll click next. And very similarly, easy for me to say, to the HR flow, this checklist emerges for Marco. This checklist is designed to really support the first probably 10 to 14, maybe 21 days after suffering a loss. The reason this exists is because through those 1,000 points of conversation, what we have heard from people is they say like, this is my person. They died suddenly. I had no idea what to do. So I Googled what to do when someone dies. And when you do that, and you should try it, sometimes you're met with funeral home ads. Sometimes you're met with articles and blogs that are 4,000 words long. They don't really tell you a whole lot of what you need to do. So the point here is to make it tactical, practical, really easy to use, and when emotion can be running really, really high. So when you start to click through the buttons, you'll see that it looks very similar to the HR side. We've got the summary here, learning more. And so we dive a little bit deeper and we start to link out to additional helpful resources if people need them. Um, One example here might be organizing pet care. If someone leaves behind a pet, you need to know what to do. So maybe there's, you need a service like Rover or WAG. Maybe you want to contact a humane society or adopt a pet. Find somebody to be able to take those responsibilities if that's what you decide to do. But also securing the home, replacing locks, things like that. Bereave's stands here is like, let's not just tell people what to do, but let's also help like tell people how to do it. We don't want people leaving Bereave and have to go Google something on their own. They probably will in some areas right now, but the goal is to make sure that we are providing that guidance throughout and they don't have to go Google something on their own. You will also see project management throughout here as well. What is not here, but very similar to how we assigned a task to Elijah Linder earlier, there will be a button here very soon that will allow Marco to share with his friends and family. So he doesn't have to go through this alone. He doesn't have to manage this checklist. He can actually collaborate with friends and family to make sure that that burden isn't just on his shoulders. At the same time that Marco has worked through these tasks, maybe delegated tasks, um, he also will have access to all of that content here on the left side. Again, another checklist that we'll be starting to develop is to help executors work through their own specific checklist. But today we're talking about what does it look like to publish notice to creditors, something that you have to do, right? And how do you do it? When you think about closing bank accounts, credit card accounts, all of those things. How do you work through with the courts? All of this guidance is here to help speed up that process. Even down to doing things like applying for taxes, canceling memberships and subscriptions. Think about like Netflix, etc. Cable, maybe. All of those things are here to help guide you. And we've also, just kind of on that note, have started to partner with companies like Full Circle Aftercare, Afterlight, RIA Services, companies that actually do that for like that's their sole job, is to help people close estates and accounts. So this could be sponsored by a company, or they could engage with these companies here. Tough to find. Most people that we talk to don't know services like this exist. So we've really seen the opportunity to kind of be the hub for all of these types of companies surrounding grief, death, loss, and be able to point people in the right direction. You will also see a significant amount of self-care. And this, again, very quick hit for making sure that people understand how to take care of themselves in these moments. And then a lot of content around very specific types of loss. We get asked about pregnancy loss a lot. We get asked about pet loss a lot. But really what we have done, and through lots of research, but also tons of conversations with folks, have built out resources, books, podcasts, retreats and conferences, things like that, that also could be sponsored by or purchased by an employer, but also through Marco himself or his family. So while he is working through this, while Marco is working through this, his return to work date is starting to come back. So he has an opportunity to read up a little bit on what to expect upon return and how to navigate this return. On the flip side, at the same time, the manager and HR team are starting to work through reentry tips. And again, this is a checklist that is coming, but helping the people that Marco interacts with on a regular basis understand how to receive him back and how to formulate this reentry plan to align Marco with Elijah and the business to make sure everybody understands what needs to get done, when it needs to get done, and how that's going to happen, and open those lines to communication. Again, the HR team will be able to see all of those cases here and can access Marco's specific checklist that they're working through under his name in that cases section. I'm also going to hit analytics real quick. There's not a ton here because I'm really the only person that logs into this specific account. So this will start to change and pretty significantly and be a little bit more actionable here. But this is meant to help HR teams and companies really understand the interaction with Bereave, from employee logins to manager logins, and also total page views. One of the things that we've heard, we did hear a ton, which is why this exists, is that HR teams really wanted to understand what content was being viewed so that they can go out and bring additional benefits into the organization, or maybe they can create certain programming. Maybe that can inform them as they are building policy. But ultimately to be able to draw some conclusions to things like retention rate and productivity of their bereaved employees through the platform. I'll give you a quick sneak peek. This doesn't exist yet. This is a wireframe, but some of the things that we're thinking about is employee case overviews, so you know what's completed and in progress. Things like new cases by month. These things are especially critical for larger organizations that help them kind of pull the entire picture together, as well as checklist tasks that are outstanding or that have been completed. So, as you know, Bereave is changing the way we experience death at home and at work. You're a big reason why we've been able to do that. Thank you so much. I'm going to figure out if there are any questions here, but before we go any further, but we can do some Q&A and we can kind of get back to our lives. Sorry, I didn't magnify that. Sorry about that. Anything specific, Chris, that we saw?
We got some good feedback on renaming the cases section, which is something we've kind of talked about as well. We'd like to come up with a better name there. And other than that, no further questions. But
cool. If anybody has ideas on that, we've thrown around a ton of event. Amy, you put that here. We've thrown around a ton of words, and we landed on case and stuck with it so that we could kind of move things forward. But all of these things are very much open to your fingerprints, really. Without the feedback that we have gotten from you all, customers, prospects, especially people who have shared with us about their person, their experience in just such a generous, thoughtful way, none of this happens. The checklist is incomplete. The content becomes incomplete. We only have our experiences to draw on, and there are so many experiences that have been shared with us that have helped us continue to build and iterate. And the more of that we get, the better Bereave becomes, not just as a product, but also as an organization. Daphne, updated flyers so we can add to our benefit package. Yep, we can talk about that. No problem, Daphne. Thank you for that. We also, if you are a customer and you are in the prototype right now, I will be in touch with you over the next several weeks as we build out a plan to make sure that we are bringing customers in at in a manner that is workable for everybody. But you will have direct access to this platform as soon as we can. Daphne, is the future planning a resource? Yes, exactly, Daphne. So think about, I'm glad you called that out. So think about future planning here. Right now, this is preparing for loss, thinking about maybe illness, terminal diagnosis, maybe somebody that's in hospice. That's content here. Eventually, we will have a tool here where you can build your own profile over time, and you can start to think about your wishes. Maybe not categorizing everything like bank accounts and passwords and logins just yet, but things like your basic wishes. As an example, I use this all the time. I have a document that actually one of our investors shared with me. He has, and so I built one. It's called "What to Do When Justin Dies." I shared it with my wife. It's 2 pages. It's pretty quick hit stuff that probably needs to get covered relatively quickly. That is the type of feature that we can build to have that information here that we can share with our friends and family and people who need it, and to help people think through those moments, because it is incredibly tough to think about our own mortality and then actually do something about it. So the easier that we can make that, the more effective I think we become at helping the survivors that we leave behind move through their grief journeys. Excuse me. Cool. Executive resources. Cool. I think we're in good shape here. Chris, anything left real quick? Any way to link counseling support to employees benefit? Counseling was McCoy. Yes. So Matt asked about kind of the link between Bereave and other resources that are available. I don't have it available today, but one of the things that will show up for an admin is the ability to add an EAP contact, add your policy, add any sort of documentation, add other benefits, like if you're a BetterHelp customer, a Talkspace customer, if you've got somebody directly for counseling beyond an EAP, and where that would show up, Matt, I'll just show you this. The checklists that I kind of walked through, when a company gets their own instance of Bereave, they get kind of the baseline checklist, but they can also add an item. Okay, so a new section or a new item. And so if that culture or that benefit program has something like a resource for therapy, that could get added to the checklist as well. So a lot of this is our experience, but each culture, each workplace is going to be a little bit different and have different things that they want to be able to include. And that's one area to do that. Thanks for asking that, Matt. Can always count on you. Cool. Well, if anybody has any questions about what we're doing, questions about what you've seen, ideas, please go ahead and shoot those notes my way. The more feedback, the better. The more critical feedback, the better. It's really helpful to also hear what not to do, like we heard with the idea of cases versus events. All of those things are so appreciated, and just believe me, we have thick skin, so it's super helpful. But until then, if you're a customer, again, I will be in touch with you in the coming weeks, and we'll figure out how to onboard you. But again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share this with you. And thanks for making this a priority for your employees and the people in your life.